Tom seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Item 3, approval of the December 16th, 2019 minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Brian, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the December 19th minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
We have one abstention. Okay, oath of office, item 4. We need to have Brian read, I don't have that, I didn't print that out, but you have to read that and swear to it.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so could you please read it and swear to the oath of office for us?
I, Brian J. Bezanson, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America and the state of Minnesota and faithfully discharge the duties as a member of the City of East Bethel Economic Development Authority, the County of Anoka, and the state of Minnesota to the best of my abilities. So help me God.
Welcome for another 5.5 years, 6 years, if you make it that long.
That will be a challenge.
Okay, thanks for putting your name in the hat again. Item 5, election and appointment of EDA officers for the 2020 term. Is there a motion to appoint?
I would make a motion to, would it be in order to handle them all in one fell swoop? Have a president nominated, a vice president nominated, and then obviously the statutory
Positions?
officials.
Yeah,
Are you talking a slate vote?
Pardon?
A slate?
Yes.
Yeah.
It would be, or if you want to, since Julie's absent, if you really want to table this, she's present, we'll do it the next meeting. Because those terms don't officially expire until the end of this month.
I think when you have an opportunity, you should take advantage of it.
So is there a motion, Brian, over there for a slate of candidate?
I don't have
EDA
I
officers?
don't have a problem tabling it.
Okay. Anybody else have a?
I
would
think
like
that's
to-
best.
Okay. There's a motion to table. Is there a second to table?
I'll make the motion to table.
You made a motion to,
All right, you make the motion to table.
Yeah, I'll withdraw my initial
wasn't-
motion. We're making a,
The motion failed because it wasn't seconded.
there was no,
I didn't really make a formal motion. I was point of order type. Right now, I would say that I'm making a motion to table, Gail.
yes.
And Tom seconded.
Some,
All in favor to table election of officers until the next meeting, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We're moving right along here. That's not even 5 after. 2020 goals and objectives, item 6. I think we're up to Stephanie's.
Yep, so at the beginning of every year, the EDA adopts a goals and strategies plan. This plan identifies those topics that are priorities for our economic development focus. The proposed goals and strategies to address our efforts to recruit and retain business are exhibited in attachment A, and they include business-friendly environment, the comp plan, financing, marketing, business recruitment, business retention and expansion, business assistant, and high-speed internet service. Staff requests that the EDA review the 2020 goals and consider approval of Exhibit 1 as objectives of the authority for the year 2020.
Does anybody have any questions about the goals and strategies?
is this criteria adopted from the comprehensive plan which we had in place before?
What you have before you is really a modification of the plan that was adopted last year with some changes to improve that. One addition to that is the consideration of a goal of the EDA, I think it should be a primary goal, is to explore what we can do for broadband initiatives in improving our high-speed internet service. The comp plan is one of the goals, but the comp plan is just a subcomponent of that. Stephanie is currently working on getting all those submissions into Met Council now for the final approval of that. The other things are just individual items that we want to try to do and focus on to improve our ability, basically to recruit and retain existing business.
Thank you.
And one of the other things I'd like to mention in that we don't really, didn't go into too much in the report is that each one of those things may be something we want to focus on at each meeting to go over, just single one out and say, this is what we're gonna do. Later on, Stephanie's gonna bring you up to date on some things that we've done on the broadband discussion since Jaquel was here at our December meeting. There's a couple things that have happened. That's the one thing I think we mainly want to focus on. The other things we're doing as we normally did, but if anybody has any ideas or suggestions or any tips to give us or leads, then we certainly want to hear those. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. I have a question. Item 4 is develop a marketing plan. But in conjunction with developing a marketing plan, wouldn't we want to also develop a marketing budget in terms of supporting that plan? Because usually marketing involves more than just putting ideas down on a piece of paper. I know that we do the MinCar Expo and we do a couple other things that we lay out. Maybe there are some other things that are opportunities that might cost some money to get into or to do or to advertise or to Google clicks or Google ads or whatever. I don't know.
No, it would be, and that would be part of the marketing plan, is once we identify what the plan is, then we would identify what any costs associated were with it, so we could see how we need to proceed with that. I think one of the basic things that I was thinking of is, we identify either target industries or target businesses that would be well suited to this market. And once we do that, then we develop a strategy to approach those, and there may be costs associated with some of the recommendations we come up. So having the budget or assigning costs to those, to me, would be part of the plan.
Okay. One of the things I was thinking about is some type of a focus group of businesses that aren't in this community. Put on a dinner or a luncheon or something, invite them to, and use them as a focus group or an outreach to how they see East Bethel, whether it's somebody from Elk River and somebody from Blaine and somebody from Iceni and somebody from Ham Lake and Columbus or Wyoming or Forest Lake, and just say, okay, how do you see East Bethel? What do you see the uses of East Bethel or opportunities that would be intriguing for East Bethel to promote East Bethel, just to give us, I mean, we all have kind of the East Bethel perspective. So in terms of reaching an audience that's not East Bethel, but would want to come to East Bethel, I think we would maybe think about reaching outside of East Bethel to get input. So I know we rely on kind of the same resources as everybody else, whether it's the state of Minnesota or the county. So I just think maybe if we relied on some thinking out of the box type of a resource to do that. I don't know if that's something we want to consider or not, but it's just something that I thought of. So
if you were considering something along those lines, wouldn't it be beneficial then to loop in the Chamber of Commerce that may give us some of those connections to businesses that would, be willing to maybe make that, connection?
sure. I agree with, you know, as much input as you can get is more valuable than less input that you would get, so. You know, including the chamber or some of the leading businesses in the chamber, I think are integral to not only a forward-looking thing, but what it's also has to do with the retention that we were talking about too, and making sure that we're retaining the businesses that we've got here, so.
Along with that, have we or the chamber done any focus on the businesses who are currently in East Bethel and identified businesses that, you know, would be supportive of their efforts? In other words, supply chain / type of businesses that would mesh with what we already have.
Well, I know part of the outcome of the BR&E were things that pointed to holes in the resources that some of the businesses are looking for. Internet access is one of them. I know that was a big one. Communication, internet access, training, and development of employees. I think those were the three big key things that came out of the BR&E that we endeavored to enlist with the university to come up with that whole plan. So, did you have something to add to that?
The only thing I wanted to add, that's a very good point, Dan. We touched briefly on it. In terms of doing our own evaluation of ourselves, our self-assessment, is part of that assessment, and you touched on this, is that maybe we should consider the opinions of site selectors. And most of this needs to be done by an outside body, because we're here every day, and sometimes we tend to look at things from 5,000 feet, where somebody else can come in and see a different perspective than we can. But I talked maybe about getting someone from DEED or someone from the other, maybe greater MSP to come in. They deal with site selection all the time and say, okay, give us your evaluation as to our strengths and weaknesses. What do we need to do to improve our position? The other thing too that you mentioned, that I'd like to go back as soon as we can at a meeting and go back and revisit the business retention and expansion plan. I think we've let that sit on the shelf. I don't think there's been much activity going on in that. And I think that was one of the most valuable things that we've done here.
Right.
And I think we need to revisit that and see what we can do to at least get some more information from it, or see what we can do to revive certain aspects of it that'll help us, at least in our ability to help our own businesses thrive and expand. That's been a very important part of our growth to date too. It's also one that we don't want to not recognize, because it may be more important. It's easier to keep a job than it is to attract somebody and create a job.
Right. One of the things that I mentioned at the last meeting that Bruce Saylor touched on, was a SWOT analysis. Just for those of you, it's an acronym that stands for a quadrant: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so people in business, as they're evaluating what they want to do and what their challenges are going to be, and where they have opportunities and where they have circumstances that they're vulnerable to, they'll do a SWOT analysis. And I think it's something that we might want to look at, and maybe having, I don't know if there's resources at the county to do that or not. But of course, when you do it as a city inside the county, you're actually, Blaine could be a threat, or internet could be a weakness, but the Ham Lake doesn't want internet going through Ham Lake to East Bethel, or whatever the circumstances are. So I think looking at it from that perspective would probably be a good idea.
I think coming in here and being, I've been here a resident about 6 years now, 6 to 7, and just some of the things I think that hold you back too is, even as you enter East Bethel, the families that helped run grocery stores, like the Soderbergs and stuff, those areas are named, almost referred to by those families. And those families are gone and those businesses are gone, but on maps, their names are still referred to. And then there aren't necessarily replacement businesses that took over. So things like that, and then we don't, I feel we could use in East Bethel too is like a main street. I mean, some sort of, area that would be a kind of a commercial hub that people would go to within the center of our city and would recognize it like it's a middle or a center to us. Because otherwise we are just kind of this spot driven through along 65 until you get to Isanti or Cambridge or wherever you're going. And then some businesses, oddly, some businesses, like by Route 65, there have been some businesses that left, and they don't even put, we've now relocated to wherever, and they pulled off their signage for the most part, but just the fact that they so didn't want to identify, that they didn't even want to say this is where we went to now, is just kind of disappointing, I think, because it doesn't, like you said, feel that connectiveness. And so maybe some better surveying and things needs to be done to find out what is going on with businesses here, what they would like to see to support their business, like you said, like some satellite businesses, and maybe also some businesses that aren't here yet. Because certainly we've got a ton of auto shops and we've got a handful of bars and we've got some repeat things, but we've got gas stations, but we're missing grocery, we're missing retail, we're missing a lot of things, pharmacy, we're missing a lot of things. And in order for these things to come here, I think first we have to see it here. We have to not just be going after the same type of business that already exists here. Not that you'd rule it out completely, but it would be nice if we could expand and broaden the types of business so that we could develop more of a community and people to recognize, like another thing with East Bethel, everybody wants to put Cedar on all my mail, and I think that hurts us too. Then people don't identify us.
We have 3 separate zip codes. Oh, 4, I'm sorry, 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it's part of trying to establish more of an identity. I mean, we have one. It's wonderful to live here, but certainly there's so many things we're missing that it would be so nice if we could bring in here and have more of a community feeling and have more resources.
Do we have any meetings scheduled with any of the developers or any of the property owners, like on the northwest corner of 65 and 22 coming up or at all, or with Bob?
We haven't had any meetings with East Bethel LLC, the northwest quadrant of, 65 and Viking Boulevard, in about 6 months. Stephanie and I did meet with one property owner in the east side of Highway 65. Did own some substantial acreage. We're always looking for opportunities to do that. I'd like to get back to one thing that Catherine mentioned and what Dan mentioned too, is East Bethel is a balkanized city. We have 4 zip codes. The one zip code is the Isanti zip code, which only has 4 houses in it, by the way.
Right.
But we also have 2 school districts. We have 3 telephone exchange, different numbers. We have a post office that's not even the name of our city. And we don't have any high school. So to develop a sense of community identity has been very difficult, a lot of those situations. Plus our population is scattered out over a large geographic area. So, that's another thing, that a lot of these little things that we're trying to do, hopefully will start making people have some sense of identity to East Bethel. And I think that's another critical portion in making some changes on the economic front. But there's lots of challenges, and that's why we bring up some of these things. We want to start addressing some of them. They won't be done overnight, but unless we start, we'll never finish.
Thank you, Jack. Anybody else have anything on that? Brian?
I'm just getting flashbacks about going back to the old post office where it used to be down in Cedar. When it was, I mean, you know, there is an actual town of Cedar, so to speak, but it's not a town. I feel sorry for the people in Oak Grove. I mean, I don't know if, what's that? Yeah, I know it is. I
Cedars
mean,
in Oak Grove?
yeah, it's right. Cedar is where 22 crosses the railroad tracks.
Okay.
It lays kind of south, and that's actually where Tommy Dolphin's bank, and I can't remember what the name of it was before they moved it out of there, but that's where,
21st. 21st.
Crosstown, that's where Crosstown Bank started, and it wasn't called Crosstown Bank when it was in Cedar. I forget, I'd have to go back and look at an old checkbook of mine to figure it out.
So does Oak Grove get labeled Cedar too, like in a postal region? They
Yeah.
get labeled Cedar too? Huh. I honestly think that does really hurt our
You know-
identity because people don't acknowledge our cities.
And people that live on the east side of the city down around Cool Lake Beach have a Wyoming address.
Yeah, I always get Wyoming on my home.
Wyoming, Stacy, Bethel. I forgot about the people that get their mail out of Isanti. You know, insofar as having a Main Street area. I mean, I think you might have been on P and Z, Randy, when that city center plan was being pushed, or was that a little bit before your time?
Before.
It was a little bit before my time.
I
But
mean,
I mean, I was aware that they were trying to make that an issue. I think trying to make that a city center really didn't make a lot of sense, particularly due to the fact of the nature of the property that they were trying to identify as being the city center.
where it was, the demographics, the entire geography of where we are, and basically the economic forces have determined that it's become it's an industrial park. They wanted to, basically, there was a proposal to put a city center moving from the movie theater and where the gas station is back in through there with housing and everything else, and I mean, it morphed into the sewer district, and I would say that thanks to Jack and some other people involved with the city, we have dodged a huge financial bullet that we could have had, because, I mean, we've made lemonade out of lemons, in my opinion, but that's just, it is my opinion. Now it's continue to make more lemonade. When I ran for council at one time, one of the big things I was running on with my background was, as commercial construction, was fire protection. Okay, you have to have fire protection in commercial buildings. There's ways that you can try to get around it. Our saviors tried to get around it, and what they ended up doing was having to put a fire pump in because the state fire marshal would not accept what the architect proposed as codes. We're the only community between Blaine and Isanti that has the opportunity to have fire protection. And certain buildings, you need to have fire protection. So that kind of has driven, to a certain degree, I think, some of the things that we can pursue from an economic development standpoint. I think that we always have to keep highest and best use in mind. You don't want to put in something that just chews up a lot of acreage in that district that doesn't generate a lot of benefit for the community. So.
Thank you.
I have a point, and maybe we can discuss a little bit more. Considering the substantial amount of work that went into the website last year, I was wondering if, and I imagine that you've included it with the development of the marketing plan as well as other areas, But I'm wondering if we can include some language as to the further refinement and development of the website as an important goal for us as a strategy reaching out to businesses. I mean, especially in light of this conversation we've had with the disaffiliation of many communities to consider ourselves as a singular city. A website is a great way to unite that.
You're exactly correct, Tom. Our website is really the face of the city now, and that's where people come to start looking for information. And we do mention that it's integrated in some statements through there, but that's an integral part of what we're gonna do is as far as providing information for initial contacts, because they don't normally call City Hall anymore, they go to your website. And you want to have everything there, hopefully, that people are looking for, so they can pick their interest, and hopefully then they'll follow up with a visit.
And I think with the introduction of the Facebook page that is now for the city, and social media continue to develop as well as an important outreach for cities out to their constituents, I think that's a really important point in our goals and strategies.
I also think it's hard that the prior website looks so formal and so professional. And I'm sure this one has different interesting benefits. But like our homepage, it just looks like a lake or something, and it's kind of vague looking, and it doesn't really, it's not very strong. And I think it'd be nice, if we could figure out some images, some things that do identify with our city, whether it's the sand cranes or whatever could kind of help pull in, because it almost just looks like a lakeshore front anywhere. It doesn't really say anything about East Bethel.
Or it does. I mean, please don't take it that I'm, necessarily disagreeing with you. But one of the things, and I haven't been involved in a lot of the community meetings in the last 7 or 8 years, certainly nothing with the new comp plan. But one of the things that really came out of the comp plan before that, which I was very involved with, I was on the council then, was that one of the real assets that we have, and it also came out in the 80 voltage study that was done, was the fact that we essentially have a rural community, okay, or a ex-urban community that you really have access to the city from here. The city services, city culture, if that's what you want. And if you don't want to have that, you can have 20 mud trucks in your backyard. Strike that, please.
Kathy, our website is not a static document. We have the ability to change that.
Okay.
And we will keep evaluating that. One of our problems now is with everything going on and limited staff, sometimes those things, making those, just keeping
Sure.
the information current is our first objective.
Right.
And then we want to do everything else to make it fresh and exciting. But we do have the ability to update all that.
Okay.
All that stuff too.
Okay.
So, one thing that you mentioned too, Brian, is quite interesting, that one of the drone footage that we had flown, there was one shot that was taken kind of over the Village Bank area, theater area, and in the background, you can see the skyline of Minneapolis. So, like you say, it's that one phrase that we never adopted as a tagline, we talked about it, is metro accessibility and rural characters.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And when you get by if you please ignore my smart aleck comment, but what it does do is kids can grow up here and they can be going to a number of different things in the metropolitan area if that's what they're interested in, or they can go out and hunt squirrels and trap and bow hunt and whatever you can have a very eclectic way of life out here if that's what you choose. And I personally think it's an advantage.
Yeah, I think it's not one or another. It's not one or the other. I think East Bethel's an awesome place to be. It's just how do we also draw in some more commerce, and how do we get people to know more about us, and how do people not get lost in the cedar and realize we are a different city and this is East Bethel and this is our identity, and how do we claim that identity, and it doesn't take anything away from our identity and all the cool, there's so much beautiful land out here, beautiful homes. People enjoy living out here. It's peaceful out here, and we have some wonderful businesses out here. But let's build on it, So
Well, that's why you're here.
that's why we're all here.
Right. Anything else on 7.0?
Well, I just would like to just maybe kind of wrap everything that we've been talking about in a fashion, where, maybe this committee or commission could be looking at, which is, we've identified, boy, it'd be nice to have, a main location downtown. We would also like to have more businesses. We're also talking about how can we connect with other businesses and make it friendly here, and also what kind of community that we want to have for our residents. And I think that's something that we've been talking about now for quite a few years, is to, what kind of direction that we're talking about. And that was the whole, BRNE that we were, was trying to get that kind of feedback. And, I think we're right now at a crossroads where we can really, drive the train the way that we want to make it go. And a lot of that has to do with the website and the social media, and deciding what kind of community that we want to build. We've also been doing some drone work, and we've been talking about expanding that as well to kind of do more outreach in some of those fashions. And I think we also have to take a look at the fact that I don't think we'll ever be a downtown city like Cambridge or Isanti, and I think we also have to take a real look at, the way that people are doing, their purchasing. And we hear time and time again, grocery store. And I'm right there with you. I would be more than happy to have that business come into East Bethel. And I think a lot of people are also like, boy, it'd be nice to maybe have, some more options for fast food or a Starbucks or, some of these type of things. But on the other hand, I don't think we're ever going to be in a system where we're going to have, like the big box store where you're going to buy furniture and those type of things, especially when you talk about today's buying opportunities, when you've got Amazon, Target, Walmart. I mean, they all, you just, sit at your computer, make an order, and it shows up at your door in the next few days. So, I mean, do people really, want a lot of those shops that are happening? And it may turn out that, instead of the big downtown that we're talking about, people are just going to be purchasing, through their online type of issues. And so then we have to identify, well, instead of wanting that big box store, we want something that maybe is more of a service rather than.
We want the internet so we can order.
Well, but that's a
Oh, I
part of
know.
it, right?
Well, and if you go
is getting
back,
that internet service here so that people can have that connection.
look at the downtown areas of outstate Minnesota that have populations of under 12,000, and what's happening to those downtown areas. So when we say we want a downtown area, which downtown area do we want? The one out in rural Minnesota where people are leaving and the downtown's disappearing, or do we want Blaine? So
I mean, there is transition to how people are shopping because of increased utilization of the internet, and that's going to happen. But I still think people really value, I still go to my local hardware store all the time. I know I'm paying more than I need to. I know I could spend a few more minutes, go to Menards and get exactly what I want cheaper. I am really glad to walk across the street and have those guys help me. Although they may not be the most helpful always.
Well-
But seriously, there's a value to seeing someone and getting the product from them and having that interaction with somebody and having a place in your community to interact like that.
Well, I agree with that.
But like you said, there are a lot of the little shops closing up, so, again, it's a difficult time for places, to make a business and start businesses, and that's why you're seeing more home businesses, and that's where this fiber optic becomes more and more important. My husband's an engineer, and our internet's driving him crazy. And I know he's not the only one. And I thought based on what Jaquel and others were saying, that the fiber optic cable ended like way, way away from us. And here, my neighbor 3 houses down by these 2 ponds I look at, she's got it. And all the people connected down that way have it, and it just stops at a certain point. So then now I'm asking, where does it stop here? And, because I know the other, like 20 of us still want it, and we don't have it yet. And they were told not that long ago, we could put it into your spot for $10,000, and then later they were told recently, a year or 2 or whatever, now we could do it for $2,500, and several of you could go in on it. And so they went in on it, and it was, I believe, less than $1,000 a home. And if the rest of us could do that, we'd all be on board, I swear. So I think these connections are closer than we know in a lot of cases. And, it's one by one. It's connecting the dots. And obviously for a whole city, takes more work in a rural community, because if if somebody's got a 10-acre lot, then, Midco or whatever is not necessarily interested for that one person. They want a larger fee, and maybe that farmer's not interested in putting it in. But it's out there and it's possible, and there's seed money too out there. So I don't know, I think we can't give up on that, but I think there is still going to be a combination of people wanting to go to a business where they see a face and to have high-speed internet.
You make a number of really good points. One of the things that was a frustrating thing for me, and we brought this up to Bruce when they did the presentation last month, was that none of these internet companies share their data with anybody else. They don't leave their maps behind. They don't want anybody to know what areas they're servicing, because they're afraid that if they do, somebody else is going to take their customers away from them. So that's one of the issues. Brian has a friend who works for a company that specializes in this type of thing, but when you break it down, and we got a financial breakdown from this fellow 4 years ago, Daryl.
Westrom.
Yeah, Daryl Westrom, showing the costs. And then not only the cost in the investment, but also the term of the payback. So, everything's has financial implications. So I know that there was another resident from East Bethel, Eric Small, who lives over on the east side of Fish Lake, and they have dial-up. I mean, it's terrible. And the cost of having the residents all sign on and create some critical mass for a company to come in and put the fiber optic in or service the neighborhood, those costs, I believe, are coming down. But, when Aggressive Hydraulics came in here, they needed a T1 line. And their internet costs were almost $10,000 a year for the length of their contract. And they had to sign on for a 5-year or 10-year, I don't know how many years it was, but it was an exorbitant amount of money for them to get that even serviced into their area. And here they are in the south end of East Bethel, and we can, we don't hold any keys to the kingdom, all of the providers do. So I don't know how the city of East Bethel, we can't, we're at the mercy of the providers. So that's our conundrum. I don't know how we get around that.
I think one of the things that Daryl stressed real strong to us, Dan, is that in the telecommunications industry, which, he's an EE, the companies picked the low-hanging fruit first. And that they were gonna, and basically he said, well, what the deal is you go in and you grab the low-hanging fruit that pays well first, and then, because they have to allocate labor and capital, and, they may or may not come along later on and fill in, but it's all about the money. And yeah, it was a very, the other thing I think with aggressive hydraulics was that they had an issue where they had to be able to download at the same speed that their serious industrial customers that would be transmitting data to them, they had to be able to take it, download it as fast as it was being sent to them. And that's what, if you remember, I think that's what Paul said, that's what really drove how
I think it was the upload, but one of the two.
Huh?
I think it was upload versus download, but one direction needed to be up.
The pipes needed to be the same size going
Right.
both ways.
Right.
And that's how come they had to do it.
It's normally the upload that is much slower than the download.
Right.
so.
Right, but regardless. Anything else on 7.0? Hearing none, let's move to 8.0, Marketing and Economic Development Report.
Let's see, 2020 goals and objectives was 6.0, 7.0 is the 2020 projects
Oh,
we'll
I'm
be
sorry,
working on.
I'm on the wrong page, I'm sorry. Yep, 2020 project.
Just trying to rush us to get out of here.
No, the hockey game, they stole the victory, the defeat from the jaws of victory last night, if you watched the game.
So just a quick list of some of the 2020 projects that staff know are in-house and that we'll be working on through 2020. One of them is the 187th Avenue to Viking Boulevard Service Road and the Elevage project. The completion of the Cambia Hills and Cedar Creek Senior Living projects, both of those will be completed by spring. The East Bethel Village Apartments, the second phase of that, we should probably see that probably early fall for the site plan review on that. We may have a couple redevelopment projects and then also broadband high-speed internet initiatives. Any questions?
Do you know when ground will be broke on the 187th Avenue project? Will that be starting in the spring as well?
We hope
It will
by
be.
June 30th.
Midsummer.
What date was that, please?
June 30th.
June 30th.
I think the Cambia Hills ribbon cutting ceremony is in February, but the date hasn't been set yet.
It has not, and I believe they're at least a couple weeks out yet.
Right.
Yeah, I know, I know people that are residents that have been hired there already,
Okay.
so.
I believe they had a hiring job fair that was supposed to be this week, but it's been pushed back.
Okay.
Okay.
And I know that Cedar Creek Senior Living Projects has got an office over at Building by Design as a showroom for people who are interested in getting into the senior center. A little bit of research on that.
Yeah, very good.
So anything else on 7.0?
Nothing for me.
Okay, item 8.0, Marketing and Economic Development Report for informational purposes.
Yeah, so the following is a list of meetings, discussions, and actions that have supported the city's marketing activities between December 16th and January 21st of this year. So staff is continuing to work with the developer of the Prairie Pines subdivision to find alternative solutions for access issues to the development. That's the northwest corner of the city, the Prairie Pines subdivision, but it looks like they're getting closer to submitting a full plan, preliminary plan set. Staff is working with the owners of the property of 209th and Highway 65 for their plans for retail site at this location. I'm continuing to work with the bank on that. Now, I talk to her probably at least once a week on that to figure out what they're actually going to do with it in regards to lot splits, and then specifically one company that would like to locate there. The East Bethel City Council and Elevage Development Group signed a memorandum of understanding that commits the city to commence city water and sewer installation to the site by June 30th of 2020, and Elevage to begin their phase 1 portion of the project by June 30th of 2021. I've been in contact with the Elevage group, and we're hoping to see full submittal of a preliminary plat plan set still yet end of January, sometime in February, so we can start that review, hoping that we can be ready to go to Planning Commission in March sometime for public hearing, and then to City Council in April. And we've also had discussions with ACRID regarding strategies to improve and expand broadband high-speed internet service and explore potential grant fundings. Jack and I had a lengthy discussion with Jaquel on this. I'm missing one of my sheets here. Yeah, so we had a good discussion on her. Again, we talked about the upgrading of the broadband infrastructure as one of our top priorities this year. And we have also talked to her about working with ACRID, Zayo, Midco, CenturyLink, and Connexus Energy to evaluate what's in place now and what the future needs will be, some solutions, and identifying funding sources to address the expansion and the availability of the services within the city. So Jaquel, what she's going to do is speak with Isanti County, Isanti, Ham Lake, Blaine, set up some meetings with them to discuss what they think of this whole project too, and if they would like to maybe start forming some type of focus group that we meet and start discussing this. Part of it too, Zayo, Midco, CenturyLink, and Connexus Energy would also be part of this group. So I believe that she was going to try to set up those meetings and again towards the end of January, February sometime, and come back to us with a report on what we should do next.
Do we know now where funding sources might exist?
There is a grant that we will possibly be applying for, and it's a $75,000 grant, but that's all we know of it right now. It's just something that she had sent Jack and I a quick email on.
Okay,
So next meeting, we'll have more of an update on that.
okay. You're not sure where it comes from though, or?
It comes from the state.
Yeah, and I can't really
And
recall what it's exactly
They're gonna be in
called.
budget negotiations starting when they come in session in February, so. It usually is usually prioritized in terms of outstate support, but we're between outstate and in-state, and, you know, we're fringe, so. Go ahead, Jack.
The one we are is from the Blanding Foundation.
Oh, that's right.
And
The what foundation?
Blanding.
Think Grand Rapids.
Blandin.
Mhm.
And they have some grant monies to do some initial groundwork on needs and assessment for areas like us that are either not served or underserved, so it can help identify our needs, what some resources may be. So we received this last week. They have to have it in by January the 24th. And Stephanie and I just told them to go ahead and throw our names in the hat, and we'll go from there and see what happens. But that'll be our first thing, and, you know, Jaquel has responded really well. She's gotten back to us on 2 different occasions, and we're looking forward to hearing from her again. We think this is going to really develop into something, especially what Stephanie just said too, about forming kind of a little coalition of all these groups. The greater your numbers, the greater your power is, so
Right.
we're looking forward to seeing what comes out of that.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else on 8.0?
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Oh, city council report, okay. Next, 9.0.
Thank you for that very gracious welcome.
Oh,
Yeah, I
yes, it's
appreciate
not
that.
Randy, it's not Tim, it's Randy.
That's the rumor. I don't have a lot, but again, I would like to thank you all for having me, and there's just a couple of items that I would like to bring to your attention. The first is that this Saturday, the fire department is having their waffle breakfast. So it says here from 8 to 11, so if you can come and make it to that event, I think it would be appreciated. It's $8 per plate and $5 for children of 6 to 12. And it does say that there's takeout is available, so you can just come pick it up and head out the door if that's what you want to do. The other item that I would like to mention too is the city has been talking about creating some events to get more involvement with city residents, and there's been lots of discussions about, maybe, something around Halloween, a trunk or treat, or maybe, Easter and doing like, an egg hunt or something along those lines. And as part of those discussions, we did put into place a game day. And what that entails is that we have set aside the senior center, community center, for an afternoon of board games. So that's going to be taking place here on February 8th on a Saturday from noon to 6. So if you have an opportunity, you want to stop by and just sit down, and there'll be lots of games available to choose from, and just sit and chat with some people and play some board games, that we would really love to have you. So we're going to have that particular event once a month, and see how it goes from there. So if you can, we'd love to have you. Thanks.
And the date again was
February 8th
February 8th?
from noon to 6.
Okay. Will there be like refreshments, coffee or water,
We're
cookies?
doing coffee, water, and then we were thinking about firing up the popcorn machine.
Okay. All
And
right.
then we were also probably gonna open up the doorway here over to the city side, where there's a pop machine, and then there's also a snack machine that people would have available to them.
Okay,
And we're encouraging people, if they wanna bring in their own snacks / drinks, they can certainly do that as well.
okay. Thank you.
So that will be showing up on social media and the city website here very shortly, so.
Gail?
I have a question. For the minutes, who is that targeted? What resident from noon to 6? Who is the target audience for that game day?
Anyone who wants to show up, other than if you're 15 and younger, you will have to have adult supervision.
All right.
Families, friends, neighbors, coworkers, Dan Butler.
Adult supervision means that you have to bring Linda.
Well, that's why I was asking about refreshments.
He did say you could bring your own.
Uh-oh. That won't be a
I
problem.
didn't
I know
think-
Dan well enough. That won't be a problem for Dan, but I'm.
The chair did not recognize you.
I would like to add one other thing too, is that, all of our meetings from here on out will be available on YouTube for viewing. So, this will give people access to see what's going on with the EDA. real behaved about that.
Will that include all the other, the city council, planning commission, all those as well?
Well, the city council and planning commission were always on the website.
Mhm.
Those will be on YouTube, EDA, the Parks, and Roads Commission will also be on there now.
Mhm.
The thing about why we established the YouTube channel was we have to meet ADA requirements for social media and website, and we were able to get these closed captions as part of the YouTube package, no cost to the city.
Anything else? Comments, questions, short speeches? Chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We're adjourned.